on another fabulous IGLTA Members Connect call. This one's for intended for CVBs and DMOs, but we opened up registration to all the membership with IGLTA. And we're really excited to welcome our guest speakers on today's media panel. So today it will be hosted by OutThere Editor-in-Chief and IGLTA board member Uwern Jong, with special guest IGLTA Honors Travel Writer Award recipient Jurriaan Teulings, EveryQueer magazine editor Meg Eyck, and LGBTQ plus travel bloggers, the Globetrotter guys, Sean and Ben. So with that being said, thank you, Uwern, for leading this panel today, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, everyone. Hi. I'm glad to see it's all very familiar faces, so I don't have to be as formal. I thought I might have to. But anyway, what a whirlwind the last 12 weeks have been, huh? There's no doubt been very challenging for many of you, notwithstanding the media industry itself. And I know I speak for all of us on the panel today to say that we've been keeping busy, continuing to report and bring good news and optimism to the world of LGBT travel, and also to our readers, followers, and fans, and also using this time to be innovative and creative, as I'm sure you all have. The purpose of this session, as we've structured it between us, is to share where we're all at after these few months and bring some of our global LGBT family back on track. So the idea is to be able to give you insight from a broad cross-section of LGBT media and media types in different parts of the world as to what's happening in our world, and potentially we can work together as we creep, or some cases like Switzerland and Italy, it seems, catapult itself into recovery. As Josh has said, really excited to welcome my special panel, which needs no introduction, most of you know them. And because I know all of you media folk, and all of us media folk really love social media, feel free to share and care. I've actually collated everyone's social media details and email details in case you want to get in touch with them, and dropping all of that into the chat now. So absolutely, share and care. So over to my fantastic panel. We've had some very top-line introductions, so I just want to ask you guys very quickly in just a minute to reintroduce yourselves personally. Also tell me where the last place you've traveled to was, and a little known fact about yourself, just to get the ball rolling. Meg, do you want to start?
Sure. So for those who don't know me, my name is Meg Eyck. I wear a lot of different hats in the industry, but I recently, back in December, started EveryQueer magazine. Previous to that, I was a travel blogger running dopesontheroad.com. What was the other part of this question?
A little known fact about you.
A little known fact about me. I know all of the US presidents in order of their inauguration because I learned it in the 3rd grade and I can't get out of my head since.
Where was the last place you traveled to, Meg?
Well, I moved to New York City right before COVID started. So I guess New York was the last place, and I've been here since. But previous to that, I was in Pride in Taiwan for Pride. So.
Lovely. Yeah. Jurriaan, what about you?
Last place I traveled to was Belgium, to a silent meditation retreat 2 weeks before the lockdown here. So
you got a lot of that now.
Actually a very good preparation for a lockdown. You know, no talking, no sex, no drugs, and worst of all, no killing for 10 days. So yeah, good preparation. Little known fact, I guess, that I sometimes also travel within.
Ooh, are you still there?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Sorry, something weird going on.
Did you hear it? Where did you lose me?
Within.
Okay. Little known fact. I guess, you know, I travel not just to other places, but also within, as in meditation and all that.
You actually ended there. I thought you meant to say you
there
within the Netherlands or within Europe or whatever. We got you. Your soul travel. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay. Sean and Ben, you're in Halifax in the UK at the moment. So tell us a little bit more about yourself. I don't think you've attended an IGLTA convention before, so people might not have met you. So tell us a little bit more about the Globetrotter guys, a little bit about yourself, a little known fact, and where the last place you traveled to was.
Okay, so hi everyone. Yeah, there are a few familiar faces on the call, but for those that don't know, I'm Ben, this is Sean, we're from the UK, and we run the Globetrotter Guys, which is an LGBT focused travel blog. We've been running that now for about 2.5 years. Started back in January 2018 when we decided that we'd had enough of the UK and we left on a one-way flight.
In terms of the last place that we travelled to, we went big and we went on the biggest gay cruise in the world with Atlantis last January before COVID struck, and went around the Caribbean, which was just phenomenal. Can't say enough good things about it. Fun facts. My hobby in my spare time when I get a chance, I like to do circus art.
And for me, I would say probably that when I was younger, my family decided to move to Spain, where I lived for 2 years, and as a result, I speak pretty much fluent Spanish, which was very helpful when we traveled through Central America, which was the first place we visited like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I was totally relying on him.
So what has the last 3 months been like for you? I mean, since travel began to lock down, I mean, what's happening in your world? What are you, also more importantly, in terms of what you do for your blog, what are you writing about? What's been your approach to content and editorial stuff at this moment in time?
It's a bit of a difficult situation, really. We made the decision after being pretty much nomadic for the best part of 2 years to come back to the UK. It was a good time to kind of settle down, have a base for a little while. Being on the road was amazing, but it's very tiring, constantly planning how to get from A to B. We wanted to catch up with family and catch up with friends, and we thought it would be good to have a base. So in that sense, we did come back to the UK just at the right time. It would have been a bit of a nightmare to be stuck somewhere trying to find a last-minute airfare back to the UK. Unfortunately, it did mean that we weren't able to spend that quality time with family and friends that we'd wanted to. And we were kind of just stuck in our apartment for the best part of 3 months. The plan was really that we were going to do quite a lot of smaller trips rather than being on the road full time. And again, that has been a bit of a problem for us. We've had in the last 3 months 3 separate trips cancelled that we've had to maybe look at rearranging for later on in the year. So that's been a bit of a challenge for us.
What it has done is that we've been stuck in an apartment, so we've got to do all those jobs that we wouldn't do otherwise, and catch up basically, and trying to plan ahead and create content that we wanted to do for a long time and just simply haven't had a chance to do. And we've also tried to focus on content and writing that is quite reactive to what our followers are currently doing. We appreciate they are stuck at home, they're not traveling. What are they doing? They're watching Netflix. So we're trying to focus on LGBT content on Netflix, but also still maintaining a inspirational travel element as well, to keep people's spirits as high as possible.
Cool. And Meg, have you been doing something similar, or have you taken a different tack?
Oh, I've been doing similar things, but I also took on a couple different consulting roles with businesses who were trying to revamp their SEO and their content strategy. So I've been doing a lot of different things. I've been working on EveryQueer. I've been helping out small business owners. I've been working with Travel Curator, which is another luxury travel site, and doing all of their content strategy. So, you know, I was working on a lot of projects with a lot of people on this call before COVID happened. And then, you know, everybody was like, well, you know, travel seems to be a little iffy right now. And so I kind of went into, I got to get an apartment because like the guys, I was completely nomadic and I was like, where do I want to be? And before we knew New York City was going to be the epicenter, I was like, New York, because that's where I'm from. And then suddenly we had, you know, 100,000 cases or something by the time I had moved in. And I was like, well, shit, I'm here now. So I've been doing like a lot of different things, but a lot of exciting things too. Like I bought furniture for the first time in 8 years, and that's been fun. And, you know, nesting, I own things like candles now, which don't fit in your suitcase well when you can only take 2 bags. So, you know, it's been cool.
And what's been the focus at EveryQueer? What have you been writing about?
Well, so I knew that I wanted to learn from my previous site. And the best and worst part of Dopes on the Road was that everything was from our perspective. And that's great when, you know, I'm going on press trips and I'm having these firsthand experiences, but it's not so great when we want to represent the entire community. And I feel like the world is white people in the world have never been more aware that people of color are not represented accurately in the travel industry. And so as a white person with a platform, when I started EveryQueer, I wanted to give voice to trans people. I wanted to give voice to people of color. I wanted to give voice to those who aren't represented in travel, which has been the mission. Now, you know, there are upsides and downsides to that. I want to pay people to do the work that they're doing. So I'm limited in the amount of content that I can put out until I can have the budget to do so. Whereas before, you know, something came up, I just wrote it myself. And that would be the easy way to do it, but it's not the moral way, and it's not the ethical way, and not the way I'm going to be doing things moving forward. And so with EveryQueer, the idea is to focus on travel and adventure and also queer content, and mixing it all together. And like the guys, no one is searching travel keywords right now, unfortunately. So, you know, doing a lot more content around LGBT issues, around social justice issues. And, you know, I've been really lucky in the work that I'm doing. So I was just able to actually 2 weeks ago hire back an assistant who was working with me before. And so we're going to be putting out a ton more content in the next few weeks, which has been great.
That's amazing. So it sounds like you've been really busy. And I know, Jurriaan, you've been saying on the media calls that you've been really busy as well. Tell us a little bit about the last few weeks.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm always running behind. I always feel like there's like this tsunami of work that I'm running from, and now it's finally caught up. And you know, there's always a lot of stories that need to be written, and I can't do it. I don't have the time, or I don't have the time to do it the way I really want to do it, and I can do that now. And for instance, you know, there's stuff that I come across while I travel. For instance, there was this trip that I took to St. Helena, a small island in the Atlantic, overseas territory of UK, and I went there for a financial paper just to write about, you know, how it had become a little bit more accessible now. There was one flight a week to get there. And I discovered that the only luxury hotel there had just hosted the first gay marriage, you know, and I had no idea, you know, I hadn't researched that. I hadn't really prepared for that. I didn't have time to look for an LGBT angle or anything, but I just stumbled upon this great story. Like, you can get married on this remote volcano top in the middle of the Atlantic where Napoleon was banned to. How cool is that? You know, so I can do that now. So yeah. So and like Meg, I've really enjoyed sort of nesting and cleaning my house and getting stuff away, and that has also I don't know, opened time for putting things in perspective and just sit back and look at how I've been running things and what that means and the alternative ways that I can do this and lead my life, and show how other people can do that too if they like.
That's amazing. Just for everyone's knowledge, Jurriaan not just an LGBT, well, he is an LGBT travel writer, but he does not just write for LGBT publications.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
A little different from Meg and Sean and Ben. But just on that note, Meg, you talked about keywords, you know, travel keyword not being searched by your LGBT fans and followers. What is the mood? You know, what do you sense in the mood of the LGBT traveler or the LGBT person at this moment in time, particularly when it comes to travel?
Well, I've been watching it really closely since the beginning of the pandemic, and you could literally watch the keywords kind of take a nosedive, but luckily things are starting to come back up, particularly in Europe. And I think that's a direct correlation with the European conversations about opening the borders. So you're starting to see certain key terms starting to rise in searches. Now, nothing is booming. I'm not gonna lie to you. We're not seeing the numbers anywhere remotely close to what they were 6 months ago, but you can slowly start to see an uptick in certain search terms in certain areas. Italy and Spain predominantly are the ones that I'm seeing a lot are increasing and rising. And so I think it's indicative of, you know, the travel planning that people are doing. Maybe they're not gonna travel right now, but they're starting that process of coming back around, which is great news.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we see something a little bit different, but I think perhaps we're in luxury travel, so that makes a little bit different because the ability to travel will always be there, or the interest in travel will definitely always be there. We're seeing, you know, almost double the amount of traffic. We normally hit just over 1 million page views a month, but now it's in the 2 million mark. So it's really interesting that people are researching things for the future, and absolutely, Europe is definitely booming. I know our audience is a lot European, but you know, over 50% is the US. So it goes to show that there is, you know, there is a little bit of optimism. And Sean and Ben, I see you nodding away there. Do you concur?
Yeah, it's really very reflective, and it's quite interesting because obviously we check our website every day. We noticed last week Greece started talking about opening up internationally, so all of a sudden we were getting hits on our Mykonos articles. So we can see that as different places around Europe specifically are starting to talk about opening up, that is affecting the traffic come back, although like Meg said, it is nowhere near what it was in January. A big difference. But also, like, worth mentioning, perhaps you're talking about the mood of LGBT travellers. From speaking with our followers, they seem to want to get out as soon as possible. So I think that as soon as places are opening, they'll be keen to jump straight on the bandwagon and get on a plane. I know that we are.
And when that time comes, how are you preparing your travellers for what's to come?
Well, in terms of how we're preparing them, I think we are just continuing to create content that will guide them to wherever they want to go. And I think when we do travel again, we will probably be more mindful and highlight the new concerns that people will have, so that when they are preparing to travel, they will have different things on their mind. Perhaps travel insurance will be more important than ever. I mean, you've always telling me off about travel insurance, not taking it seriously. So I think in terms of being prepared, we will start to focus and have those discussions and bring them to the forefront.
And I think, yeah, just the types of trips I think people are going to be looking on. Obviously, at the minute, the short term it has taken a hit, and I think one of the biggest things we've noticed is that obviously we're right in the middle of Pride season now. People aren't able to go to Pride. LGBT travel is huge at this time of year. People go into different cities to attend Prides that they can't do. So I think obviously when travel does pick up again, people are going to want to make up for the time that they've lost. They're going to want to make up for the trips that they've had to cancel and had to reschedule. So different types of trips that are going to fit all people's needs. One of the things that we are doing at the moment is we're actually collaborating with Pride Sailing Holidays that run chartered yacht trips around Europe. And that is quite big at the moment because obviously Greece, Croatia have opened their borders again. Nautical is a completely different way of traveling. It's much smaller groups. You're not landlocked anywhere. So those type of trips that we're kind of promoting at the moment that fit more with people's requirements. I think we've lost Ewan. Yes, we have.
Okay, so we've lost the host. Great.
This is where you self-moderate.
I know, we self-moderate. But yeah, I mean, carry on with what Ben was saying about sailing. I think, like, because that's a small group of 8, so I'm thinking that people will look at sailing trips and think, well, a small group's much lower risk. So that is something that we've got on our mind when we're talking about trips and preparing to travel again. What is going to be more appropriate and low risk types of travel?
Well, and I've also noticed that a lot of people are very interested in soft adventure type trips. I recently did an article for one of my clients that was about domestic national park hotels within the US, and it was overwhelmingly received. And I think it's because there is this perception of now is the time to get back to nature. Now is the time to, use that as an opportunity to social distance. And so I think we're going to start seeing destinations that haven't necessarily been as booming or thriving as some of our tier 1s starting to get travelers to those areas because of social distancing and because the traveler is being mindful of crowd control and all of those things, which I think is a great news when we're talking about last year's huge conversation of over tourism and being able to kind of spread that tourism dollar out to a lot of different places. Our host is back.
Is he?
He's on mute.
I can't
I
stand.
had to change my phone. I'm sorry about that. Seem to have lost all internet completely. So I'm now on 4G. So if I dip in and out, I'm sorry about that. I knew that would happen. Always it happened to me.
Oh,
Best
feedback.
time. Where did we get to? Okay, I guess we talked about mood, right? And you know how are you preparing your followers for the future? So why don't we go to Jurriaan? You know, as an award-winning travel writer, I guess you don't have that sort of direct following base because you write for lots of different magazines. I mean, what's on the horizon for you? What's going to be the hot topics that you think editors or magazines or media will want to hear about going forward post-COVID?
Well, I'm quite interested in what kind of processes this crisis might have sped up. For instance, like yesterday, I interviewed the First Lady of Belize, one of those tiny outposts of the Commonwealth. And it also, until very recently, this had a very quite hostile attitude towards LGBT people, and scrapped their Victorian anti-buggery heritage out of their legislation only in 2016, I think. Much like India did, really. And she has come out as an ally and lent her voice to a local LGBT rights movement. And she was saying how Belize is such a popular wedding destination. And I was thinking, well, now that this industry is really struggling, it may actually find out that same-sex weddings could save part of their industry. So I'm actually, I'm interested in what's happening there. And I think, maybe the usual city trips with a visit to a local gay bar and maybe a pride won't do it anymore for a lot of people because of social distancing. So it's too busy. So I'm thinking people will be interested in road trips, remote places, perhaps a little bit more adventurous things, just because city trips are all of a sudden a lot more iffy, really, especially if you're nervous about social distancing.
Cool. And from we're going to have CVBs on this call, so I wanted to sort of impart some advice, not necessarily advice, but some constructive ways on how the media and brands can potentially work together. How can travel brands or destinations help you right now, Jurriaan? And what do you feel you need from them? And how can we work together as a community to get back on track?
Interesting question. Well, I need them to think a bit outside the box. It's so easy to think of LGBT travel in one way, like, we'll just invite a couple of journalists and take them around the neighborhood. And now is the time to take us to more remote places, maybe focus on experiences rather than restaurants or hotels.
Okay, Meg, same question to you. How can brands help you?
I think that people around the world need something to be hopeful for, something to plan for, something to look forward to. And so I think Jurriaan's experiences really hit the nail on the head, because I think gone are the days where people are traveling for a hotel. People are traveling because they want that wanderlusty adventure. I did something amazing kind of trip. And this is the perfect time to be, encouraging folks to dream about what the possibilities are 6 months from now, a year from now. Help us help them dream. Give us imagery that we can use. Give us story ideas that go beyond the digital prides and stuff are amazing and are great, but help us encourage them to start planning that once in a lifetime trip. Why should they go to your destination? That's the kind of stuff that's super helpful for me from a content perspective.
And given that you might not be traveling, you know, for we don't know for how long, you know, what else how can destinations bring that magic of travel besides photography? Bring some ideas to you. You know, what ways, you know, what mechanisms would work for you, and what would, you know, how would you transfer that onto your audience?
Highlight interesting queer people in your area that are doing interesting things. You know, tell me about that lesbian chef who's doing something really innovative, and as soon as the restaurant opens, it's going to be incredible. If you want to promote like a specific business, tell me about that. If you want to do this more wanderlusty ideas type things, show me what those experiences in your area that are kind of, I don't want to say hidden gems because that's cliche, but like a lot of people don't know about outside of like your destination. Those are the kind of things that I'm really interested in. Obviously media like videos and photos and all of those things are really great, but introduce us to people who will help us create content that works for us. And for me, that's always going to be queer women, you know what I mean, who are doing interesting things that aren't going to necessarily get the mainstream press. Like that's what I want to hear about.
Yeah, I totally agree. We're the same. And I think particularly at this time when we can't send journalists out to destination to get the very latest, you know, using people that are in destination is also a really good thing. Queer people particularly, but also travel writers, travel bloggers that happen to be in certain destinations that can give you the real sort of insight into what's happening in that destination right now, up to the minute stuff that, you know, traveling travel writers won't be able to do, maybe, I don't know, for a few months yet. What about you, Sean and Ben? What can brands or destinations help you do to make your life easier and getting the right sort of information out to your fans and followers?
I was going to say very similar comments to Jurriaan and Meg, but what I sort of had in front of my mind, and it is similar to what they've said, is what can we share and what can we talk about that is more than Pride, more than the gay bars, more than the hotels, which goes back to the same point on experiences. And not a specific LGBT example, but we got an email today from Visit Berlin, who we worked with last year, and they highlighted all of these experiences out in nature. So even though Berlin's a city, it was highlighting the things that people are looking for now. So for me, that information is really useful because now I can talk about Berlin outside of the typical, everyone knows about Berlin from a gay perspective, but what more can I talk about? So I think having those conversations, having that information shared is useful from my perspective, from that perspective.
That's good. Like, so thinking outside the box, really thinking about the different ways of approaching similar sort of content. Meg, you know, same thing. I mean, the guys there have pulled out some really great examples, like, you know, Visit Berlin's example. I mean, have you seen anything else that destinations are doing that would, you know, that you've gone, wow, actually, that's really fun?
It's not this is gonna sound really ass kissy, but I've been loving the experientialist stuff that you've been putting out, honestly.
Well, thank you.
I'm not sure because you're moderating this panel, but
here comes the commission. Commission comes later.
But I think what you're doing is what people need. And I think that being able to model things after those kind of dreams that people are having, like the news, the media is so heavy right now. And in terms of DMOs, honestly, there was a period of time where I was getting 100 press releases a day, and then it trickled down to like 3. And then it was like clearly like an automated press release situation. And I don't know if destinations are kind of afraid to start reaching out. I've been getting more and more and more over the last few weeks, but it's kind of been more of the same stuff. So, you know, I would love to see the folks on the call really challenge yourself to be able to do something that we can use now, whether it's framed around, you know, like the national parks that we've mentioned, or destinations that aren't going to be as packed, or activities that you can do from a social distancing perspective. That would be super helpful for me. So I would love to see more of it.
I totally agree. I mean, I think particularly in PR or marketing, particularly for destinations, their leaders and their followers, the challenges at the moment, the leaders are getting, you know, all the share of voice, and people that come out with a similar thing a few weeks later, you know, they struggle to get coverage. So I would always urge sort of people in destination to think like a leader as much as possible. I know that's not always possible, resources and budget and whatnot, but you know, to think about unique ways of positioning your destinations rather than follow the trends. Like 700 virtual tours a day, you know, and I just don't think people are that interested in that anymore. And we're now becoming, you know, we've now come to the sort of recovery stage, as particularly in Europe, as you guys have highlighted. And I think it's really starting, you know, our strategy here at OutThere is really to start now to come out of that sort of dare to dream scenario, but actually start thinking about what the next step is, how you're going to reappraise travel in the future. Jurriaan, a similar question. Have you, you know, you talked about Belize a little bit there, but have you seen anything else coming out from destination that you think is really good and really captured your imagination?
Well, I think that a lot of people have taken the opportunity of the last 2 months to work on their health. I know you have. I know I have. To, you know, because now all of a sudden you have more time, and there's more room in your schedule for a routine, and so there's been 2 German health clinics that have independently approached me, and I thought it was a really a good idea that they have, you know, they have their health routines and regimes that they want to they want you to do, for instance, like a 10-day fast or something like that. And I think it's I thought, well, this is really clever, because everybody's really even if they haven't paid much attention to their health the past 2 months, they are very aware of, you know, how important it is to stay healthy in a time of a pandemic. So I thought it was interesting. It made me think, oh, I want to do more with this wellness health angle.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I mean, I've been on some of our Experientialist Live seminars. Wellness has really come out as a lead, both in LGBT and also mainstream. You know, thinking in terms of the types of holiday going forward. I totally agree with you. Sean and Ben, we talked, you know, you talked a little bit about the functional benefits of, like, you know, the functional things that your audience is looking for coming out on the other side, particularly with regard to insurance. But what else? What else do you think they'll be looking for? How can, you know, how can destinations or travel brands really sort of make the most of this land grab coming out of coming out post-COVID, of people wanting to get out and do things? What are sort of things that will really make your audience listen?
I think when travel does open, there will probably be a big domino effect. I think a lot of people are obviously going to be very cautious about traveling to start with, but the more people see other people traveling, they will then start to travel themselves. And I think the people that are more open to the idea will probably just want that little bit of reassurance. And I think it can come from a DMO perspective, it can come from a hotel directly, it can come from a destination as a whole. But I think anyone being very explicit about what it is that they're doing in their country, in their hotel, within their company, to make travel safe for people, whether that's, you know, from a cleanliness perspective, from a social distancing, restriction on numbers, anything along those lines, people will then obviously feel more safer to leave again. And then the more that other people see people doing that, it will just be a huge follow-on effect. And we'll all then be able to travel much sooner rather than later.
I think there's almost like a permission element. If they see somebody else traveling, like, oh, well, they're traveling, so it's time for me to start traveling as well. I think that's something to showcase that people are coming to your destinations and they are doing things and really show off, basically.
I think one of the things that we kind of avoid a little bit at the moment is that, because obviously we have a large following, is we don't want to come across as insensitive to our readers, and we don't want to be promoting visiting new destinations when people are obviously quite cautious to the idea. If we can go out there with some very clear-cut messages as to, it is safe to go here, it is fine to do this, these are the reasons why, people obviously will feel a lot better about that. And as influencers, we would actually feel more confident going out with those messages.
But travel is sexy, though, isn't it? That's the thing. I mean, like, we spend our lives talking about how sexy or how, you know, wonderful and magical concept of travel is. I'm just so worried that we'll end up in this really dry, functional space on the other side of this. I mean, are there any things you think that besides the sort of very reassuring things that destinations can do? Should we continue selling that magical travel? Or do you think that's tone deaf?
I think there's still an appetite for it, to be honest. I think a lot of people that we've spoken to don't even seem that bothered about any of the risks. I know that we are very keen to go back to normal, and a really good example is Winter Pride in Gran Canaria this year in November. We are part of a Facebook group of like 10,000 people, and people just want to go to the event. They're not really bothered about having anything change. So there still is an appetite for normality, putting all those sort of reinsurances aside. So there's definitely still two halves, two sides to the coin. There still will be the same people doing the same things just as ever, and don't forget about them, basically, because everyone could put too much of a focus on, like you said, doing the reassurances, where actually people just want normality.
And Meg, same question. With what you're seeing from your following on social media and also with EveryQueer magazine, what are LGBT travelers going to be looking for at the other side of all of this?
Well, I think LGBT travelers are, for sure, we know based off of history, they're going to be the ones who rebound the first and are going to start traveling more. But I think that American travelers in particular are going to have struggles and issues that people from other countries are just not going to have. And the US audience is a huge market for a lot of people in the industry. And we're kind of in this super weird divide where a lot of people are still really terrified of COVID. Our numbers are still climbing. We're having second rounds in a lot of different places around the US. And then we have like people like me who was just in a 40,000 person demonstration 3 days ago. You know what I mean? Like, there is this weird kind of dichotomy that's happening with the US traveler right now. And I don't think that it's going to completely stop people from traveling, but I do think that LGBT people in particular are starting to open their eyes to other social issues beyond just COVID. So yes, we want the sanitizer stations, but we also want your marketing to be inclusive, and we want to have diversity on your board, and we are starting to check these things, and we're starting to look into it and know where our money is going and what we're doing in terms of how we're spending our dollars in these different destinations. And I think like we're starting to see the tiniest little snowball effect of something that is about to be an enormous avalanche in the next 10 years of demanding inclusion and demanding respect for the different segments of the population within the LGBT community. And that's just not happening right now. So yeah, COVID's an issue, and we want our hand sanitizer and our social distancing, but we also want inclusion, and we want respect, and we want to see like a true reflection of the LGBT community. And I know that's not really the question that you asked me, but you gave me the mic, so.
No, absolutely. I totally agree with you, and I think that's a very important point to make. I always say that this time, particularly with COVID, was a good opportunity to reset the status quo and a way of thinking differently. And then with everything that's happening with race right now, that's an additional layer. So I think brands have to be really, really sort of mindful of all these things going forward, and the LGBT question, and all the other questions that line up, sustainability. There's just so much to think about right now, and I think brands that can really manage, sort of get around all those issues will end up very successful in the end. On that note, given what you've just said, what do you think the top 3 destinations will be coming out of this period, Meg?
For lesbians or for the LGBT community?
For you, I mean, for who your audience is, based on your thinking and insight and what you know of your audience.
I definitely think it's going to be destinations that have, some kind of natural resource, some kind of space that they can. I mean, that's always typically been a queer women's top priority. We've always gone to those kind of destinations like Argentina and, like Colorado and places that have that like natural beauty. And I think it's going to be just even more so now that we have some of the COVID restrictions. that doesn't, I mean, yeah, but I also think like this whole conversation of like what's going to happen in 6 months, like we're all guessing. You know, I can look at every analytics tool in the world, but I could have never predicted COVID. You know what I mean? I think the reality is like we can use educated opinions based off of what we've known in the past or what has worked or what we're seeing in trends in SEO now. But the world has been fundamentally changed and travel has been fundamentally changed. And I don't know that travel will ever be exactly the same. People will travel again, queer people will travel again. And I think there's going to be a lot of changes that happen along the way, particularly if we're introducing things like body scanners or temperature devices. That's going to disproportionately impact people living with HIV and AIDS. It's going to impact the trans and non-binary community. And it's going to make travel even harder for a lot of people in the queer world. And I think like as queer content creators on this call, as DMOs representing an LGBT audience, we're going to have to be aware of those changes and aware how they impact marginalized people moving forward. And that's not the answer that any DMO wants to hear, but I think that's real, you know? And so I would love to see destinations that have, you know, traditionally been queer women friendly, like, you know, Portland is a great one. You know, a lot of destinations in the UK, like Manchester, have been traditionally really great for queer women travelers. I would love to see them kind of double down on their efforts, but also providing information that is, this is what we're doing without like terrifying people into not wanting to go there. And that's like the balance that we're going to have to face in, you know, the next few months.
Yeah, I think balance is important. Over to Jurriaan. Jurriaan, what do you think about this whole situation?
Well, to be honest, I think we will all stay closer to home for a while, just so each of us should probably look at their own country and the neighboring countries, or the countries where you can travel to and get back home quickly if there's, you know, if a family member is in trouble, or, you know, these are things that people worry about not getting home fast enough when they're traveling. So based on that, I think most likely my travels will be in Europe, and I'm looking at Slovenia at the moment.
Okay.
And Portugal, and of course the Netherlands.
Home travel.
Yeah. There's a lot.
Or travel internally, as you call it.
Well, yeah. Well,
plenty of IGLTA members in those destinations to be able to help you out. So I hope you reach out to them. Sean and Ben, same question. Really, top 3. What are you feeling that your audience will be looking at going forwards, and why?
So we were just sort of thinking, like, what are going to be the popular destinations for the next, say, 3 to 6 months? And another one that sort of seems to have crept up on our statistics on our website recently is Costa Rica. And obviously, that's in line with the fact that they have now legalized same-sex marriage. And if you combine with the fact that it's actually a really great destination for LGBT travelers, which we did not realize until we went there in 2018, how much it had an offer, we think that could really see a potential boom. One that we were talking about earlier today, actually, Ben mentioned, was Greece, and in part because it's one of the first places in Europe to open up anyway. Also in part because they're doing a lot of price slashes. Or are they doing some?
Yeah, a lot of the major airlines, a lot of the local tourism boards, the large hotel chains have literally half the prices over there to try and attract people back quicker. So that's obviously going to help it take off.
And naturally, you have, you know, Mykonos, Athens, Eos, all those kind of places that are quite popular with gay travellers. And yeah, I mean, because we're talking about short term and thinking 6 months, we've already mentioned Gran Canaria, a bit of winter sun in Europe, a big gay destination, naturally might come back to life November, December time, we would think.
Yeah, people are going to want to make up for what they've missed. And so a lot of places within Europe obviously are rescheduling a lot of their larger summer events over the winter season. So for that reason, we think Europe will probably bounce back very quickly.
Amazing. And where can't you wait to go? What's first on your list when you're basically for work and also for, you know, for just pleasure, for just leisure, holiday? Where do you want to go after all of this is done?
We're really not very fussy. So we're sat in the UK. It's currently torrential downpour. Anywhere with a beach, anywhere with some cocktails.
Yeah.
Anywhere at the moment.
We're supposed to be in Croatia in August, and we have no idea whether it's happening yet. So we will see, but that would be ideal.
And Jurriaan, are you off to these health facilities in Germany?
I might do that. It's not something I necessarily look forward to, but I might do that. What I'm actually looking forward to, if all travel is safe and there's no COVID, I would probably go to China, especially Wuhan. I'm very interested now.
That is 100% Jurriaan answer. You're just going to go to the most like avoided place on earth and take loads of great photographs.
Exactly. They'll need my support. I'm sure there's some gay people there to hang out with.
And Meg, what about you? Where are you headed?
So I'm definitely going to be heading to Puerto Rico. I just really want to explore more of the island. I've been a couple times, but haven't really done the deep dive that I want to do. And then eventually on the day when countries start allowing Americans in, I still haven't been to Italy, and I want to go home to Italy. I was looking forward to going to Italy so much. So I
miss seeing you, all of you, face to face, to be honest. And Milan was going to be, I was so excited about being in Italy and then seeing you all. Sorry to cut you off there, Meg, but sorry, carry on. Where else?
No, I was so excited about that. And I also really would love to go back to Turkey. I want to go to Cappadocia and Bodrum and like a few other places. So there's a lot on the list. Hopefully it happens sooner rather than later.
Amazing. And now we're coming up to the end of our 50 minutes that we've allocated. Just have one more question for you all before we head into questions. What have you learned from this time, and how has this time changed the way in which you're going to approach the future in terms of what you do, in terms of writing, and in terms of what you do in terms of the destinations you visit? Let's stick with Meg. Meg, I know you touched on this, talking about a more diverse, inclusive, thoughtful, mindful future. But what has changed for you? Has anything changed for you?
Well, 2019 was a big year for me professionally and personally. And so at the beginning of this year, before COVID had even happened, I had really started to think about, what do I want? And I've spent the last 8 years chasing the high of travel. And I think, anyone who is in this industry, particularly, does like the sales part and the travel part, like every time you get an opportunity, it feels like you're winning, like you are on top of the world. At least for me, it does. And I chased that for so long, and I didn't take care of myself. And so I wasn't doing my best content, and I wasn't doing my best work, and I wasn't as intentional or as thoughtful as I could have been, because I was on the road back to back to back to back to back to back. And so I think the biggest lesson for me is exactly what you're saying, and being intentional and being thoughtful about not only the content that I'm creating, but about the brands that I'm working with, and about like, I want to work on like transparency and authenticity in my following and in the things that I'm doing. And I don't want to, at the end of the day, we only have ourselves, you know what I mean? And who we are represented online is like an extension of who we are as humans. Like, I don't believe that we have to share every single thing, but I think that's the biggest lesson that I learned, is that, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many amazing opportunities I got or how many deals I had or who I'm a brand ambassador for. Like, I need to be able to go to sleep at night and be proud of what I'm doing. And so I think in the future, like, I'm going to be that person who, challenges and pushes a little bit while creating the content that I think needs to be put out there into the world. And I'm hoping that the industry sees that as like a love letter to what we do, because I love what we do. I love travel. I love the queer community. And I hope that we as a community can come together and be intentional about some of these changes that we need to make, whether it's COVID, whether it's for Black Lives Matter, whether it's for any of these issues that we're talking about, and kind of come together in supporting that.
That's a wonderful sentiment. I think we all need to be a bit more Meg going forward. Sean and Ben, what have you learned from this period?
Me personally, I've learned that I've got more appreciation for travel than ever before, for the fact of missing out on it so much. And I think that going forward, that will be translated into the content that we create. We'll appreciate being able to get back out on the road and being able to appreciate sharing the amazing things around the world that we can see so much more after having it effectively taken away for 6 months or more, who knows. And I think that will definitely make its way into our content and make it more engaging and more real and more heard by people, I would say.
I think we're probably going to look at it with much more of an open mind in terms of that people want to travel differently. People want to have different experiences. I think so. You know, we do have a little bit of a tendency to focus on sort of the known of a destination. The fact that people have had to be more mindful about how they travel, what they take out of a destination, things that people maybe don't know so much. I think when we do get to go back on the road, we're going to dig a lot deeper than what we ever have before it and find out really what a destination has to offer that people wouldn't previously have thought of.
Great. And Jurriaan, any final words, final thoughts from our award-winning travel writer?
Well, I can tell you that I've learned that travel writers are much better friends when they don't travel so much. So I really is. I've reconnected with my friends at home, and I put a bit higher value on that now, knowing that.
No, I agree with you. And
I
for
still
me,
travel.
For me, it's been a little bit more about health, actually, as you say. It's
Yeah.
I realized actually how permanently jet lagged I was the whole time.
Exactly. Yeah.
In my life, and actually how tired I was. And actually, yeah, I'm definitely raring to go again. But you know, it made me reevaluate the way I approach my work. So okay, thanks everyone. Thank you for my panelists. Thank you for your time. I hope that you all found that insightful. And now, if there are any questions, feel free to ask. It's a small group, so you can just pop up and ask what you want. I'm hoping maybe someone can help me out because I'm now on my phone and I cannot see the chat. So.
I have a lot to say, and I'm not sure exactly where to start.
You, Jeffrey, have a lot to say?
Yeah, go on. But I kind of want to bring it, I want to give you all what's going on at my perspective to help everyone, giving them more targeted or direction and opportunities. So in Hawaii, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you ask, we were literally at 3 o'clock yesterday, just extended for another 30-day quarantine. So no air arrival, regardless of origin. They must go to 14-day quarantine upon arrival through July 31st. And that is our 3rd extension of the quarantine. So with that being said, our challenge has been as a DMO is that at the beginning, we had to send literally a letter from my CEO to all of our media outlets to tell them to not promote Hawaii in really no uncertain terms. It was our request, went through the reasons why. And the challenge is that as time has evolved, people, there's been a lot of negativity around that, let's just say, in addition to what's going on with things that are going on with the residents. Putting that all together, because of reduced funding, because of tax, we're not getting the tax base, all this other stuff, we've had to significantly reduce our media and earned media, paid media and earned media strategy. And with that, so we had relied on, we use Edelman. We use Edelman, but we're using them on a significantly smaller scale. Maybe that they would be the ones who would vet people that we may work with. Now that responsibility is coming in-house, and our conversations are about 2 things. We're looking for people to have a voice, regardless of their niche content, but helping us to spread the word of our reopen and the things that are important to us as an opportunity. And then the sub niche then might fall into the mix. So I think that the opportunity for everyone who is talking to a destination or a brand is really, first phase is helping them communicate whether they're opening, whether they're something new, that it's something different, and then take your voice to that specific audience, because I know that we're not going out to a specific audience. We're going out to our targeted traveler in a macro fashion. So I think that that is an interesting opportunity, but also I think is when you are either pitching or introducing yourself to destinations, keep in mind that the people that might be reading it now have not vetted people recently because they've had an agency or somebody else to do that. So there's a lot of reintroduction going on. So that's also an opportunity. And it's also really a way for everybody to do it in the voice that they want to be heard in now, as opposed to a voice, like as Meg or everybody said, that maybe that they've evolved from even 7 months ago, 6 months ago. So I really do think that from my conversations, and I'll be more than happy to share insight as we go down this journey as well, but that's the kind of things that we're doing. And we're looking at a tiered strategy in terms of market targeting, is that we're going West Coast first. So we're looking for people who have expertise in the Seattle market, the LA market, the San Francisco market. And then from there, then we'll roll it out to people globally or across the United States or whatever it happens to be. So that's just kind of my 2 cents, but I've been really wanting to share that because I think that that hopefully could be helpful for people as they're rethinking their strategy and as they start to reach out. So.
Absolutely, Jeffrey. Thank you so much for that. I mean, that's super important, I think, for us to know. But I think on the flip side, the other thing that we don't usually talk about as media, a lot of us are media owners.
Yeah.
And a lot of us, our influencers are making their own buck. And there's a staggering report here in the UK, and it's from the PPA, which is the Professional Publishers Association, and they represent independent and network publishers, that half of travel media will go under by September. Yeah. If the industry doesn't come together to help keep media outlets alive. So it's a little bit of a head-to-head conversation. I think that people need to have, I think we want to help, but people, we have to think a bit long term as well. And a lot of destinations, I feel, and sometimes thinking a bit short term at this moment in time. And I get it. I totally understand. I totally get it, because you've got to work on tomorrow first, right? You've got to work on the recovery part of it. But thinking long term to be able to support the media and help the media would also be really interesting. I think we need to find collaborative ways between the media and destinations to do that. That is totally different to what we've ever done before. I don't know, guys, have you got anything you wanted to add to that, Meg or Jurriaan?
No, I completely
I would also add something.
Go ahead, Jurriaan.
Because because if you ask what destinations can do to help, the first things are technical things, to be available, because things are going to speed very, very quickly up here in Germany. So I noticed that. So I was already on 3 trips during the last 2 weeks. And then we tried, there's a lot of staff and PR agencies are furloughed. So we don't have any contacts to the US right now. So it's really hard. So lots of staff it's on pause.
Right.
So it's a really huge demand after this. The press will approach the destinations to work with to go there. And if the staff is not there, it will be really, really hard. They will be overwhelmed with requests and to help. So I think destinations should be prepared that there will be a high demand of people reaching out to them to work with them. And for now, I can't see those destinations be prepared for that.
It's hard. I think it's a catch-22. Yeah. When it comes to recovery, it's really hard. Everyone appreciates where everyone's at, but everyone's also trying to find a way to make sure that there is a sustainable way of going forward. Are there any other questions? I know it's 5 minutes past, and some people have jumped onto the other call because there is another call on at the moment. But anything else? If not, I'd like to do a little shameless plug. And you might be webinared to death, all of you, but we've also been running our own webinar sessions for the experiences live. And tomorrow there's one at 2 p.m. On British Summer Time. I think that's 9 Eastern Time, but it's all about destinations. We have Fred Dixon from NYC and Company, as you all know, but we also have the Minister of Tourism from the Yucatan State. I know Meg used to live in Merida, and that's your hood, and you miss it very much. We have the UK country directors on Switzerland tourism, who opens its doors next week. and also from the Japan National Tourism Association. So if you are free, I'd love you all to come and join, because it's always going to be a really interesting chat about how different destinations are at different points in their life cycle are looking at doing. And to Meg's sort of, in Meg's area, the week after, we have a Meg, make sure you're at this one, basically. We have a session on race and diversity, which is something very true to my heart, as you all know, and it's the elephant in the room, particularly of the luxury travel sector. So I'm thrilled to have actually assembled a panel, quite possibly one of the first in luxury travel, that comprises completely of people of color. So from award-winning travel writer Alex Temblador, who I don't know if some of you have been reading her work on Travel Pulse, about how American companies and destinations can make destinations more welcoming and safe to African Americans and Latinos, and travelers of all background. But we've also had the head of EMEA luxury sales for Milia Hotels, who's from Cameroon. Trust me, it was impossible to find senior people of color, senior people in luxury travel that are of color. And actually, some people have really pushed back even and told me that they're gagged because their companies won't let them speak on the issue. And I even had someone say to me that it was rather unhelpful of me to be highlighting the industry's failings in this area at this time where we're all struggling for work. So it goes to show that there's a real challenge in our industry for this. So I hope you all can join us. And we also have the CEO of the UK's top diversity media agency. So this is very good for you guys. They work with influencers across the world. They also work with traditional media, but Chris Kenner is of Brand Advance, and basically they help brands reach diverse travelers or diverse audiences anyway. So all the details I will share with you by email after this. And in the meantime, I hope you can all take care of yourself. Nice to see you all. Glad to see that you're all looking well. Sorry for the tech issues that I've had dropping off and all that. I'm glad you're experts at being able to just pick it up and carry it on. But look after each other, and I hope to see you all soon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.